In October 2019, a documentary crew disappeared deep in North Cascades National Park. For over 4 years, there were no leads until March 2024, when hikers discovered a hidden camera in the wilderness. The footage it contained revealed events that have never been fully explained. Patrick Cruz's recovered footage begins on October 10, 2019, the day his 4-person documentary crew entered the North Cascades. Within minutes of arriving at their remote campsite, his camera captures the team unloading gear beneath towering Douglas firs, their voices muffled by the thick canopy. Katie Holmes, the director, can be heard saying this spot was perfect, exactly where people claim to see strange things. Patrick immediately begins setting up his equipment, installing multiple infrared cameras, motion sensors, and a high-definition night vision camera about 100 yards from camp. Their plan was straightforward: spend a week in the wilderness and prove there was nothing lurking in these woods. The first day passed quietly, but something felt off. Patrick's footage shows their guide, Peter Harrison, constantly scanning the tree line, his face tense with concern. By nightfall, the forest had become unnaturally still, and Patrick's cameras were recording everything. Day 2 brought the first signs that something was wrong. Patrick's morning footage captured unusual tree damage. Massive branches snapped at heights of 12 to 15 feet, far beyond the reach of any known animal in the region. The breaks appeared fresh, with sap still oozing from the wounds. When asked, Peter shrugs and says it must have been from recent storms, but Patrick's voice on the footage points out there hadn't been strong winds in weeks. Bonnie Walsh's voice can be heard whispering on the audio recordings from Day 2. She told the others to listen to how quiet it was. Her professional sound equipment had captured an eerie phenomenon: the complete absence of typical forest sounds. No bird calls, no rustling of small animals, no insect activity. The silence was so profound, it seemed unnatural. Day 3 introduced a new element of unease: the smell. Patrick's footage shows the team covering their noses and discussing a powerful, musky odor that seemed to drift through their camp in waves. The scent was unlike anything they had encountered. Not the typical smell of decomposing vegetation or animal waste, but something far more pungent and disturbing. That evening, Patrick learned that one of his trail cameras a quarter-mile north of camp had been triggered multiple times. He became determined to retrieve the footage immediately. Peter strongly warned him not to go alone after dark, but Patrick argued that waiting until morning might mean missing their only chance at proof. Against Peter's protests, he set out into the night. Patrick's voice records on the final group footage, saying he would be back in 2 hours. If this camera caught something, it could be exactly what they needed for the documentary. Those would be the last words his teammates would ever hear him speak. Patrick Cruz returned to their base camp at 11:47 p.m. on October 13th, his headlamp cutting through the oppressive darkness of the North Cascades wilderness. What he found would haunt the final recordings on his personal camera: complete and utter silence where his 3 teammates should have been sleeping. The recovered footage shows Patrick's growing panic as he approaches the campsite. His voice calls out Katie, Bonnie, and Peter's names, carrying eerily through the still forest air. His camera captures the disturbing scene. The tents were zipped shut from the outside, as if no one had left them at all, yet they were completely empty inside. Sleeping bags lay flat and cold, as if their occupants had simply vanished into thin air. Patrick's handheld camera shakes violently as he searches each tent methodically. Katie's tent contained her personal belongings, including her phone and wallet, items no experienced hiker would abandon voluntarily. Bonnie's sound equipment remained powered on, still recording the eerie silence that had plagued their camp for days. Peter's tent held his survival gear and emergency beacon, devices that could have saved his life in a crisis. Patrick's voice whispers on the recording, his breathing becoming increasingly rapid. He asks where they could have gone, noting that their boots and all their gear remained at the campsite. The footage reveals Patrick's desperate 2-hour search around the immediate campsite. His camera light illuminates broken branches and disturbed undergrowth, but no clear trail indicating which direction his teammates might have traveled. Most disturbing of all, there were no signs of struggle, no torn fabric, no scattered belongings, no evidence of the violent encounter one might expect if they had been attacked by the region's known predators: black bears, mountain lions, or wolves. Patrick's final personal recording, time-stamped 2:15 a.m. on October 14th, shows him attempting to use his satellite phone to contact emergency services. He calls for immediate assistance, reporting that 3 members of his party are missing. The call failed to connect due to the remote location and mountainous terrain that blocked satellite signals. By dawn, Patrick had made the agonizing decision to hike toward the nearest ranger station, a treacherous 8-mile journey through unmarked wilderness. His camera captured the final images of their abandoned campsite before he disappeared into the forest, never to be seen again. The search effort began on October 16, 2019, after Patrick failed to reach the ranger station as planned. Within hours, North Cascades National Park organized a large-scale operation. Helicopter crews scanned the terrain from above, while ground teams with experienced mountaineers and search dogs combed through the dense forest below. Search and rescue coordinator Maria Santos told local media they had never seen a case like this. 4 experienced individuals don't just vanish without leaving some trace. There should have been evidence, clothing, equipment, something. The search teams made several disturbing discoveries over the following weeks. Torn pieces of fabric, later confirmed to be from Katie's jacket, were scattered across a half-mile radius with no clear pattern. Bonnie's backup audio recorder was discovered lodged in a tree branch 15 feet off the ground, its memory card corrupted and unreadable. Most puzzling of all, Peter's emergency whistle was found 3 miles from camp in terrain so steep it would have required expert climbing skills to reach. Search teams reported no drag marks, footprints, or signs explaining how any of these items had ended up where they were found. Despite the extensive search effort, no bodies were recovered. The official investigation, led by Park Service criminal investigator James Mitchell, explored every possible scenario. Mitchell stated in his final report that they considered everything: bear attacks, falls into ravines, hypothermia, even the possibility of foul play. But the evidence didn't support any single theory. After 3 months of intensive searching, the case was officially suspended. The 4 missing persons were presumed dead, victims of the unforgiving North Cascades wilderness. Local newspapers ran stories about the lost documentary crew, and the case became another tragic reminder of how quickly the mountains could claim lives. The families of Katie Holmes, Bonnie Walsh, Peter Harrison, and Patrick Cruz never stopped hoping for answers. They organized private search parties, hired investigators, and offered substantial rewards for any information about their loved one's fate. For 5 years, the North Cascades kept their secrets, until March 2024, when 2 college students would stumble upon a discovery that would change everything. March 15, 2024, began as a routine spring break hiking trip for University of Washington students Jake Jackson and Melissa Cruz. The pair had planned a 3-day backpacking expedition through the less-traveled sections of North Cascades National Park, seeking adventure away from the crowded tourist trails. Neither could have imagined they were about to uncover one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in the park's history. The breakthrough came on their 2nd day, as they navigated a particularly challenging section of rocky terrain approximately 8 miles from where the documentary crew had last been seen. Melissa was the first to spot something unusual wedged between 2 massive granite boulders, a black waterproof pelican case partially buried under 5 years of accumulated debris and vegetation. Jake later told investigators that at first they thought it might be some old camping gear left behind by other hikers. But when they pulled it out and saw how heavy it was, they knew it had to be something important. The case bore the unmistakable markings of professional film equipment, with P. Cruise Documentary Crew 2019 etched into a metal plate on the lid. Inside, protected from the elements by military-grade waterproofing, lay a treasure trove of evidence: 4 SD cards, 2 backup hard drives, Patrick's personal camera, and a waterlogged notebook containing what appeared to be technical notes about camera positions and recording schedules. Jake and Melissa immediately contacted park authorities, who arrived within hours to secure the scene. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation team that had worked the original missing persons case. Detective Sarah Williams, who had taken over the cold case file in 2022, described the find as the first real break they'd had in 5 years. But the equipment discovery was only the beginning. 2 days later, while expanding their search of the surrounding area, investigators made a far more grim finding. Partial human remains, bleached white by years of mountain weather, were discovered in a shallow ravine approximately 2 miles from where Patrick's equipment had been found. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Michael Torres was brought in to examine the bones. His analysis revealed a disturbing picture. The remains belonged to a single individual, later identified through dental records as Katie Holmes, the documentary's director. However, the condition and distribution of the bones raised more questions than answers. Dr. Torres explained in his official report that the scatter pattern was unusual. The bones were widely scattered, suggesting animal activity, but some of the damage patterns didn't match any known animals in the region. There were unusual scoring marks on several bones that they couldn't definitively attribute to bear or mountain lion activity. Most puzzling of all, the bones showed signs of having been buried and then later exposed, possibly by seasonal flooding or animal activity. The skull was never recovered, despite extensive searching of the surrounding area. This detail would prove particularly significant when Patrick's footage was eventually analyzed. The discovery of Katie's remains brought some closure to her family, but raised new questions about the fate of the other 3 missing persons. Despite additional searches covering several miles around the site, no trace of Bonnie Walsh, Peter Harrison, or Patrick Cruise was ever found. Their disappearance remained as mysterious as ever. Patrick's fate became the subject of quiet speculation. Unlike the others, his body had never been discovered, leading some to theorize that he might have survived the initial incident that claimed his teammates. His family clung to hope that he might still be alive somewhere, possibly suffering from amnesia, or living as a hermit in the vast wilderness. The real answers, however, lay waiting in the digital files recovered from Patrick's waterproof case. As investigators prepared to examine the footage, they had no idea they were about to witness something that would challenge everything science believed about the creatures that inhabit North America's most remote wilderness areas. The truth about what happened to Patrick Cruise was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The digital forensics team at the Washington State Crime Lab had seen their share of disturbing evidence, but nothing could have prepared them for what they discovered on Patrick Cruise's recovered SD cards. Lead digital analyst Dr. Rebecca Martinez spent 3 weeks meticulously examining the files, running authentication protocols, and cross-referencing timestamps to ensure the footage's integrity. Dr. Martinez stated during her official presentation to the investigation team that in 20 years of digital forensics, she had never encountered anything like this. The footage was absolutely authentic, with no signs of digital manipulation, consistent metadata, and the camera's internal clock matched known timestamps from the expedition. What they were seeing had actually happened. The authentication process involved multiple independent experts. Video analysis specialist Dr. James Chen from the University of Washington confirmed the footage's legitimacy using advanced pixel analysis and compression artifact examination. The footage was captured on the exact camera model Patrick Cruz was known to carry, using settings consistent with his documented filming preferences. There was no question about its authenticity. The recovered footage begins at 11:47 p.m., captured by Patrick's infrared trail camera positioned approximately 100 yards from the team's sleeping area. The camera, originally intended to monitor wildlife activity, had been recording continuously for 3 days. What it captured on the night of October 13th defied all scientific understanding of North American wildlife. The infrared footage initially shows the typical forest scene: trees swaying gently in the mountain breeze, the occasional small animal moving through the underbrush. Then, at exactly 11:47 p.m., something massive enters the frame from the left side of the screen. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a primatologist from the Smithsonian Institution, provided expert analysis of the creature's movement patterns. What they were seeing was bipedal locomotion that was distinctly different from human gait patterns. The stride length suggested something much larger than a human, likely well over 7 feet tall, perhaps closer to 8, with a body mass significantly greater than any known North American mammal. The figure moves with deliberate caution, pausing frequently to test the air and scan its surroundings. Its posture is upright but slightly hunched, with arms that appear disproportionately long compared to human anatomy. Most striking is the creature's obvious intelligence. It approaches the campsite using available cover, moving from tree to tree in a pattern that suggests tactical thinking. Dr. Hendricks explains that this wasn't random animal behavior. The creature was demonstrating problem-solving skills and environmental awareness that they typically associated with higher primates. It was actively avoiding detection while gathering information about the human presence. For nearly an hour, the creature methodically examines the documentary crew's campsite. The infrared camera captures it approaching each tent, spending several minutes outside each one, as if listening to the occupants' breathing patterns. The level of patience and systematic behavior is unprecedented in wildlife footage. Most disturbing is a 20-minute period where the creature crouches motionless outside Katie Holmes's tent. Thermal imaging analysis later revealed that Katie was awake during this time, her elevated body temperature suggesting stress or fear, though she never called out or attempted to leave her tent. Animal behaviorist Dr. Michael Torres notes that the creature appears to be learning. It was studying human sleeping patterns, tent construction, and equipment placement. This suggested a level of cognitive ability that challenged their understanding of undiscovered species. The footage shows the creature examining their equipment with obvious curiosity. It carefully touches Patrick's backup camera equipment, manipulates tent guy lines, and even appears to investigate their food storage containers. Throughout this examination, its movements remain deliberate and controlled, never causing enough disturbance to wake the sleeping humans. At 2:45 a.m., the creature does something that sends shockwaves through the scientific community. After nearly 3 hours of observation, it walks directly toward Patrick's hidden infrared camera, moving with purpose and apparent awareness of the device's location. The resulting footage provides the clearest view of an unknown hominid ever captured. For 30 seconds, the creature stares directly into the camera lens, its face filling the frame in unprecedented detail. The infrared imaging reveals facial features that are distinctly non-human, yet disturbingly familiar. Dr. Hendricks' analysis of the facial structure was unlike anything she'd seen before. Its head shape resembled early hominid skulls, with a pronounced brow ridge and a high cranial dome. But the eyes were almost human, filled with a disturbing awareness. It seemed to know it was being recorded. The eyes, reflecting the infrared illumination, appear almost human in their expressiveness. There's no aggression in the gaze, but rather what can only be described as curiosity mixed with caution. The creature tilts its head slightly, as if studying the camera's construction and purpose. Cryptozoologist Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum from Idaho State University states that what they were seeing was unprecedented. This creature was demonstrating self-awareness and technological recognition that suggested cognitive abilities rivaling their own species. Perhaps the most significant moment in the footage occurs at 3:20 a.m. when the creature steps back from the camera and makes a series of deliberate hand gestures toward the tree line. The audio equipment, still functioning despite the crew's disappearance, captures a series of low-frequency vocalizations in response. Audio analysis by Dr. Sarah Kim, a specialist in primate communication, revealed repeating patterns and pitch variations. She noted they might represent a primitive form of communication, though their exact meaning remains unknown. The creature's hand gestures appear to be directing something or someone in the forest. Thermal imaging analysis of the surrounding area, enhanced through digital processing, reveals at least 2 additional heat signatures moving through the trees approximately 200 yards from the camera position. Dr. Torres explains that they weren't dealing with a solitary creature. This footage suggested a coordinated group with established communication methods and social structure. The implications for their understanding of North American wildlife were staggering. The final piece of crucial footage comes from Patrick's personal camera, recovered from his equipment case. Time-stamped at 6:30 a.m. on October 14th, it shows Patrick reviewing the trail camera footage on his camera's LCD screen. His whispered reaction provides chilling context to what he had discovered. Patrick's voice trembles as he watches the stalking sequence, expressing shock that the creature had been there all night, watching them sleep. Katie, Bonnie, and Peter had no idea what was out there. The footage shows Patrick's growing realization of the danger they faced. His hands shake as he operates the camera controls, zooming in on the creature's face during the direct stare sequence. He acknowledges that this was real and that everything they came to debunk was wrong. Patrick's final recorded words reveal his fatal decision. He had to get closer footage because this changed everything they knew about these creatures. He had to document this properly. The camera captures Patrick gathering additional equipment, telephoto lenses, extra batteries, and his most sensitive audio recording gear. He hesitates, glancing back toward the safety of camp before looking once more at the footprints. His breathing grows heavy, as if weighing the risk against the importance of what he'd captured. Finally, he steadies himself, mutters that he has to see this through, and steps into the dark. His last image shows him heading deeper into the forest, following what appeared to be large footprints leading away from their campsite. The release of Patrick Cruz's footage in June 2024 sparked unprecedented debate in the scientific community. Dr. Martinez quickly assembled a panel of experts to analyze every frame. Forensic video analyst Dr. Chen confirmed the creature's proportions were consistent throughout, ruling out hoaxes or costumes. The limb ratios, gait mechanics, and facial structure were anatomically impossible for a human to replicate. Harvard anthropologist Dr. Lisa Rodriguez suggested the footage might represent a surviving population of an unknown hominid species, one that diverged from humans millions of years ago, yet persisted in isolation. If verified, it could rewrite human evolutionary history. The Smithsonian soon announced a dedicated research task force led by Dr. Patricia Hendricks to investigate further. Hendricks emphasized that while the footage was compelling, physical evidence would still be required before confirming a new species. Some experts praised the material as potentially historic, while skeptics urged caution, reminding the public that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary proof. Even with expert review, many questions remain. What happened to Patrick after his last transmission? Did he capture more evidence? And most unsettling, were these creatures involved in the disappearance of his teammates? Patrick's footage gained additional credibility when researchers began investigating historical reports from the North Cascades region. What they discovered was a pattern of encounters spanning over a century, all describing remarkably similar creatures in the same general area. The earliest documented report dates back to 1994, when a prospector named Daniel Rourke claimed he was held captive for several days by a family of large, hairy humanoids near Grey Wolf Ridge, deep in the North Cascades. Rourke described their behavior and social interactions in remarkable detail, accounts that eerily mirror what Patrick's cameras later captured. In 1997, logging foreman Justine Clark reported a close encounter with a massive bipedal creature while hunting near Cultus Lake, approximately 50 miles from where Patrick's footage was recorded. Rose's description of the creature's intelligent eyes and deliberate movements matched the behavioral patterns seen in the infrared footage. More recent incidents painted an even clearer picture. In 2008, Park Ranger Jennifer Walsh filed an official incident report describing multiple sightings of large, upright figures moving through the forest during her night patrols. Walsh stated in her report that she saw them on at least 6 different occasions. They moved with purpose and seemed to be avoiding human contact deliberately. The most compelling historical evidence came from the Lummi Nation, whose traditional territory includes portions of the North Cascades. Tribal elder Robert James revealed that his people had known of the creatures for generations, calling them Tsemeku, the forest guardians. James explained during a tribal council meeting that their ancestors always knew they were there. They were taught to respect their territory and avoid disturbing them. The cameras had finally caught what they had always known existed. Between 2010 and 2019, the North Cascades National Park received 17 official reports of unusual sightings, all describing large bipedal creatures exhibiting intelligent behavior. Park officials had previously attributed these reports to misidentified bears or hoaxes, but Patrick's footage forced a complete reevaluation of these incidents. The release of Patrick's footage brought bittersweet closure to the families. Katie Holmes's parents said that knowing she died pursuing the truth gave them some peace. She had always believed in following the evidence wherever it led. But the footage also deepened the mystery. It showed the creatures systematically observing the team for days, a detail that haunted the families of Bonnie Walsh and Peter Harrison, whose bodies were never found. Patrick's sister, Maria Cruz, organized multiple search expeditions in the months after the disappearance, determined to find answers. The release of Patrick's footage seemed to trigger an increase in reported sightings throughout the Pacific Northwest. In the 6 months following the footage's publication, the North Cascades National Park received over 40 reports of unusual encounters, more than the previous decade combined. Most significantly, trail cameras installed by researchers in the area where Patrick's equipment was found captured additional footage in September 2024. The new recordings showed multiple large figures moving through the forest at night, displaying the same coordinated behavior patterns seen in Patrick's original footage. Dr. Martinez, who led the authentication of Patrick's footage, said the new recordings were highly consistent with the original material. The gait patterns, body proportions, and behavioral characteristics closely matched what had been observed before. She suggested this could indicate a breeding population that has remained largely undetected for generations, but emphasized that further study is needed before drawing conclusions. The most recent incident occurred in November 2024, when backpacker Thomas Jones reported a close encounter just 5 miles from Patrick's original campsite. Jones's description matched the creatures in the footage perfectly. It was massive, at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark hair. But what struck him most were its eyes, which were intelligent, almost human. It watched him for maybe 30 seconds, then just melted back into the forest. Park officials have quietly increased patrols in the area and established new restrictions on overnight camping in the most remote sections of the North Cascades. While they haven't officially acknowledged the existence of unknown creatures, their actions suggest a recognition that something dangerous inhabits the deepest wilderness areas. As researchers continue to analyze Patrick's footage and investigate new sightings, one question remains unanswered. What happened to Patrick Cruz after he captured the most important cryptozoological evidence in history? His fate, like the creatures he documented, remains hidden in the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the North Cascades. The search for answers continues, but one thing is certain. Patrick Cruz saw Bigfoot, and his courage in documenting that encounter has changed our understanding of what lurks in North America's most remote wilderness forever.